Hello everybody and welcome back to another creative build video. My name is KashMuney, that's Cash with a K, money with a U, but feel free to call me Cash. So right here I have a plot of land, and as you might be able to tell by the title, we are going to be building a lighthouse today. This build is going to consist of two major parts: building the actual lighthouse and then building some of the surrounding details to make it feel like it's a part of the environment. So first of all, we are going to work on building up the base of the lighthouse. I kind of want to make this piece of land turn into kind of a rocky cliff sort of area. So we are going to build up this terrain with just a little bit of stone. And right now we are just going for shape. We are not going to worry about the makeup or the gradient or anything like that right now. As I said in my hot air balloon build video, it is more of an art, not a science. I'm just kind of bringing this terrain to kind of form a rough circle, a flat area right here. So I chose to go with the lighthouse today because lighthouses are so charming. I mean, you go near the coast and you might see one like on a lake or by the ocean, and they just have this nice elegance to them. I don't know, I've always been fascinated by them, and I thought it'd be something fun to build. A little bit of a challenge too. And my strategy for building up this base is just placing blocks, kind of having a general idea in mind, like I want the edges to be pretty steep, so I might place 2 blocks at a time, 2 blocks stacked on top of each other, that is. And then as I go in, it might just be 1 block and then like 2 blocks next to each other. So we kind of have this nice like almost spherical shape or curve shape right here. And there we go. Here's the base for our lighthouse. It only took about 10 minutes to put together, so really not that bad. I am now going to get started on the actual lighthouse. For the lighthouse, I want to do a circular design. I'm going to put it about right here. I would like to make it striped red and white for kind of that classic lighthouse look. But to build the actual shape of the lighthouse, I'm going to start off with white concrete just to not worry about the actual details or the colors or the striping of the house. So we are going to get started. To actually build this lighthouse, I'm going to be using a strategy I used to build the hot air balloon. That is building the side profile of the lighthouse, replicating it in all 4 cardinal directions, and then using circles to connect those side profiles, and then finally smoothing out those circles. It sounds a bit confusing, but we'll walk through it and it'll make more sense. To start, I'm going to be building the approximate size of the base of the lighthouse I want, and I'm just going to be messing with sizes right now. I don't exactly know how wide I want this lighthouse to be, and I'm liking that a lot more. So now we need to figure out the height of the lighthouse, so I'll just start in the middle and build up. And for this lighthouse, I kind of want to have it curve in a bit, although if I want to do that, I should probably make this base a bit bigger. Okay, so I made a couple changes. I decided to center the lighthouse on the rock mass, make the base a bit larger, and then we have the not top of the lighthouse, but the part of the lighthouse where you might see like a walkway around it. That's where this is going to be. And then we have approximately the top of the lighthouse. Now that we have the actual top and bottom of the body of the lighthouse, we are going to make these side profile lines. There we go, and that gives us the approximate shape of our lighthouse. Let's kind of visualize it a bit more. So now I'm going to add the 9 diameter circle up to this point and then the 7 up to this point, and then we will begin smoothing out the transition between the two so it looks a bit more natural. As you can see, we definitely need to work on transitioning the wider part to the smaller part. Something I do notice is that I don't like how far this wide part goes up. I might drop it down 2 or 3 blocks and then extend the narrow part down a bit more, just so we get kind of a narrow field to the lighthouse instead of, this massive base into like a little peak up here. So I'll do that real quick. There we go. I'm liking that a lot more. Something about this process is that it's iterative, meaning that we will always be going back and forth between steps. You might think something looks great the first time you try it out, but then you get further in the process, realize that's not so great, and have to take a few steps back to correct it. Like this, I thought it'd be good to have the wide base up to about here, but it made the lighthouse look a bit off balance, a bit bottom heavy, so we lowered it a bit, and now I'm liking that a lot more. There are some holes between the two layers right here, but that will get smoothed out in the transition. Speaking of the transition, we are going to work on that next. The way I want to do this is to maybe have like some, I don't know, like a little U shape right here, and then have these edge pieces kind of going up into the narrow portion a little bit, maybe something like that. And we just want to kind of break up this layer right here, kind of smooth it out. So I'm just going to mess around a bit and we'll see how it looks. Like I said, it's not a science. And while doing this, since we're taking away pieces of this wider base, I'm just going to extend the top of the tower down a little bit, just like this. So when we start taking away blocks, we aren't worried about there being giant holes in the build. We're just going to start adding blocks, taking away blocks, just kind of work on it until we come across something we like. I really like this design. I kind of went for an inverted V right here, and then on the diagonals and the corners, I did something similar, wider at the bottom and then narrowing at the top. Something that's pretty important is making sure that your transitions, aren't all at the same level. As you can see, this change in block diameter does not line up with this one. It's one block below. We have a similar situation here. I think it really helps blend the transition together and make it look more natural. Something that might be helpful is to add a couple blocks at the base, just to make it look like the lighthouse is really wide at the base and then it narrows up to the top. So we can just add a couple blocks. And I really like this. It really adds to the whole shrinking diameter of the lighthouse, and I think it looks good. So I'm going to replicate this on all four sides, and then we are going to evaluate it and see if we like it. So here's the lighthouse after we have added all of those transitions. I think it looks really good. I really like how dynamic and honestly organic the lighthouse is. I do think this top portion, we need to add something here. Maybe narrow it a couple blocks at the top. There we go. I think that looks a lot better. So now that we have the shape of the lighthouse we want, we get to add the stripes and the gradient into it. Here are the gradients I decided to go with. As you can see, we have red terracotta, red concrete, red wool, and red mushroom block, and then diorite, calcite, white wool, and snow. I decided for the white gradient, to kind of go from a dirty white to a more lighter, cleaner white. I want this lighthouse to look old and make it look like it has gone through a lot of, storms and other type of weather. Maybe the white has gotten dirtied by the salt water, by stuff washing up from the sea, stuff like that. As you can see, I kind of marked out where I want the stripes to go. As for adding the gradient to the lighthouse, I think I'm going to first do the lighthouse all in one color, in one gradient, and then I'm going to go through and using these markers I put, change the respective layer to either red or white. It's just a little bit tricky to be doing the stripes and the gradient at the same time, so I think doing the gradient first and then adding the stripes later is going to make my job a bit easier. So I'm going to get started. And I'm going to go with the white gradient. I think it looks really good. Building gradients can be pretty tricky sometimes. It's hard to try and take these very different blocks and blend them together so it looks like a continuation of one structure and not, layers of one block and then the next and then the next and so on. And there's different strategies to creating these gradients. For this, I am kind of doing it in layers. So I'll do a layer of one block, like layer from about here to here was all calcite. Here to the bottom is diorite, and I just kind of start adding blocks between the two to create a smooth transition. And you also want to think about lighting, like how is like the sun hitting this? I imagine the sun's going to be about right here, so I'm going to put the lighter shade of blocks kind of where the sun is going to shine most directly on them, and the darker blocks where it's going to be darker. When I get to a layer, I might go down 2 or 3 blocks and, start adding the block above it, if that makes sense. So here is like the layer boundary between calcite and wool. Here's where I might start incorporating some wool blocks, just a couple here and there. And then as I get higher, I am going to add more and more wool. So this layer of blocks, 2 blocks down, I might have, I don't know, a quarter of blocks wool. This layer, I might have half of them, might have half up here again, and then like a quarter and so on. And it's really just all based on feel. Like if it doesn't look right to you, it probably isn't, so you can change it. And if you like it, keep it. As for selecting gradients, that can be tricky as well. I like to pull up a block Minecraft blocks by color website that just tells me, what are some white blocks, what are some red blocks, and I'll go through those, find some blocks I like, and then I'll start doing some patterns on the ground with them and see if I like it. Like I tried out some mangrove wood. I tried it with this red gradient and it didn't look too great. It was a bit of too much of a jump between dark to light, so I ended up not using it. But that color guide helped me figure out that that's a possibility. So it's really just messing around, figuring out what your options are, and experimenting. And here's the lighthouse once the gradient has been finished. I think it really conveys the sense of, this has been here a while, the sea and the weather has kind of worn away the whiteness at the bottom. I really like it. So the next step is to add in the red stripes to this tower. As I said before, I have them already marked. I am just going to be replacing like the corresponding blocks. So we have red terracotta corresponding to diorite, red concrete corresponding to the calcite, wool to wool, and the mushroom block to the snow block. So where there's a diorite block, I'll replace with red terracotta, and so on. So we'll do that real quick. I was looking at some pictures, and I think it would be best if I did 5 stripes, 3 red, 2 white. Okay, I think we have some issues. Um, First of all, I think the red layers are too different. I mean, we have the terracotta, which has a little bit of orange or brown to it, and then this bright red middle layer, and then a kind of bland top layer. And similar with the white stripe, we have the diorite with a calcite, which has a lot of gray to the wool and a little bit of snow, which has no gray. So it kind of looks like we just have 5 different layers here, which I don't think is going to work. Editor Cache here. I may have forgotten to mention that I changed the red mushroom block to red concrete powder because the red concrete powder looks better. So I'm going to mess around a bit and we'll see if we can fix this. And here's the lighthouse after making some changes. I think it's looking a lot better. As you can see, instead of doing the gradient throughout the whole tower, I kind of did it by layer. So here we have the terracotta into the concrete, and then we have some terracotta again with the concrete into wool, and then wool into the concrete powder. And it's a similar case for the white gradient. I think it looks a lot better, a lot more put together, and that is the base of the tower done. So now we get to add the top and a lot of the fun details for the lighthouse. So for the top part of the lighthouse where we're gonna have the lights, not super sure what design I want to go for, but I have some reference images and I'm just trying to use those to, come up with a good design that looks kind of realistic. Okay, so I know a lot has changed since the last clip, but I was struggling a bit with the top of the tower, and then I found my groove, and I got it all built. So I decided to go for a deep slate and spruce kind of look. I thought the deep slate really contrasts with the rest of the tower. And then we have some little bit of exposed copper trapdoors here, just as like a railing to this entire thing. And then we have a little spruce layer right here. I just thought this would be a nice like stand for the light to go in. And of course, we have the glass for the lighthouse. I used a combination of glass blocks and glass panes to create this sort of curved window aspect to the lighthouse, and I think it looks really good. I still need to put the light in, but I'm liking it. And then I did a deep slate roof just with a bunch of slabs. Now we need to add a bit of an interior to the lighthouse, add the lights, and we can go from there. And I thought it'd be fun to add a little lightning rod to the top. Some lighthouses have them, and I thought it'd be cool to add. For the interior, we have a lot of space to work with. I have seen in a lot of places that lighthouses have spiral staircases, so I thought that'd be a cool addition to have. Maybe this could be a little, I don't know, foyer or room somebody can live in, and then there will be a spiral staircase traveling up here to get up to the top of the tower. We're going to start from the top and work our way down. So first I'm going to add a little door up here, just so you know the person at the bottom can come up, access the top of the tower, and do any inspections or any work on it as necessary. Although, how do I place this door? There we go. And from here, we'll add the spiral staircase going down. So here's the spiral staircase in. It is not very safe, so we are going to add some railings and clean up the walls so, there's not so many holes in the sides. Okay, so I just filled in the walls a little bit just to make sure you can't fall over the outside of the staircase. Now we just need to make sure you can't fall over the inside. I'm adding some oak trap doors to the side of the stairs. This rickety look I've gotten is fitting right in. So I'm going to try this for the rest of the staircase and see how it looks. And I think this little hand railing looks great. It kind of lets you peer over the edge a little bit. Almost fell there. But it helps keep you on the stairs, which is exactly what I was hoping for. And the oak wood adds a nice bit of, as I said, rickety-ness. Is that a word? I don't know, but it's a word that fits here, so yeah, I'm really liking this. I'm gonna keep on working on the interior, maybe do some lighting, some little decorations, and I will get back once it is done. So after a lot of messing around, here is the interior of the lighthouse. As you can see, it's a pretty simple vibe. We have some chairs and a table right here, a little kitchen with, I don't know, some food that they're making, a sink, fridge, some countertops, and a little bed, side table, and some boxes for storage right here. It's a pretty simple interior, but it kind of just speaks to how the person living here is manning the lighthouse, and they live a pretty simple life. As we go up the stairs, we see this monstrosity. This is how the lighthouse is powered. Something that has been really important for this build in particular is sticking to the theme. So as we kind of described in the beginning, this lighthouse is meant to be old, kind of worn down, shown by like, the paint being worn away on the lighthouse, the rickety stairs, and now we have this monstrosity. This is, as I said, how the lighthouse is powered. It kind of looks like stuff has been added to it over the years, modified, replaced. It's just worn down, and honestly, not many people can figure out how this works. It's just a bit of a mess, but it really ties into the rest of the old and ricketiness of this lighthouse. As you can see, we have a little power line going up the center of the lighthouse, and there's little wires branching out into these lanterns, kind of showing that this little power line powers these lanterns. And they're kind of at all different angles. They have different wires for copper versus these chains. And it just kind of shows that, like, oh, over the years, these have been added, replaced, just with parts on hand. And it doesn't really match, but it works. As we head up, we continue seeing just lanterns being put in weird various angles. And once we get to the top, if we get there eventually, We see the power line kind of go over, up, and into the light at the top of the tower. And this is what the ships are going to see. The light beaming out across the waters, keeping them from hitting the rocks or the shore. I really love the interior of this build. I think it really goes with the narrative of the lighthouse. Really ties into how old and worn down it is, how it's been patched up over the years and never really completely fixed. With the interior done, we can move on to the environment. The lighthouse looks great, but it doesn't really fit into its environment, so we are going to be terraforming this little rock cliff, maybe adding some gravel, different types of stone. I would like to add a path, kind of going down to the water. I would also like to add some plant life, maybe a road coming up to the lighthouse, and I think it'd be cool to add a truck. We'll see if that happens. So yeah, let's get started. We're going to make a little road extending away from the lighthouse, and I'm first going to map up where it's going to go. Here's the general layout for the road. So now we are going to make it. I decided to go with a big combination of blocks, some cobblestone, andesite, gravel, and then a bunch of this dead coral. I really like the look of the gravel, so I thought because the dead coral kind of matches the color of the gravel, it would go well together, and I definitely think that is the case. I really like this road. Again, going with the theme, it looks worn down, old, and fits right in. I also added these little parking signs, lighthouse parking and guest parking, just as little details. And then I've started working on paths up to the lighthouse and around to kind of the, what would you call this? The ocean right here. Now we're going to work on texturing and making this rock mass look a bit more natural. So here's my progress with texturing the rock the lighthouse is sitting on. I went for a smooth basalt, deep slate, tough, and stone kind of gradient. I chose to go with the gradient because as the waves crash against the rock, it's going to get the bottom rocks darker than the top, so they're naturally going to be darker. And then algae and moss tend to grow on the rocks closer to the water, so that makes them appear darker as well. So I really like this. I'm going to finish up this texturing for the rest of the rock, and we'll go from there. That texturing did wonders to this rock mass. It really helps the lighthouse fit in. It makes it look like this rock has been here for a very long time, getting pounded by the waves, covered in algae and moss, and yeah, I really like it. I think it looks a lot better. Now we need to add some details to this rock area and add a little path through here. Maybe a dock, that might be cool. Okay, so I know it was day in the last clip and now it is midnight, but here we are with the little progress update on the environment. I made this little dock. It's pretty run down, again, going with the theme, and a ship comes by once a week, once a month, drops off some supplies, they get stored here, and then once the person living in the tower needs them, they can take them up this path back into the lighthouse. I added these soul lanterns, which I really like. I didn't realize this, but they give off less light than a regular lantern. And I went into my settings, uh, video settings, and went to brightness. Normally it's set at full brightness, which makes, this night look a lot brighter. But if you set your brightness down to 20 or 30, it gives this like eerie vibe, and these lanterns are just barely keeping the darkness away, and I really like that vibe. But nighttime aside, we can look at the rest of the work I have done. As you can see, we have the dock and this path leading up here, and I made this nice little kind of gravel and dead coral path again, similar to the road, just kind of leading up to the lighthouse. As for the landscape, I went in and added some little boulders, just kind of showing that this landscape isn't one solid rock piece. It's made up of a lot of little rocks. I also added some dead coral just to, again, break up this landscape, and I think it is looking fantastic. I feel pretty happy with this part of the build, but now we need to focus on this. I don't want to do too much work in the screen area. This is a very big island, and to be honest, I don't really want to texture at all. I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but I love this thing. I had an idea for it, but I did not realize it could come together this well and look this amazing. So I'm going to get working on the rest of the environment and we will be done. Wow, that was a lot of environmenting. I did not realize how big of a task this would be. I mean, this is a huge area and it's a lot of space to fill, and I think we filled it pretty well. First of all, I extended the road along the whole island. I didn't want to do that originally, but it's such a distinctive feature that it's kind of weird if it just cuts off like midway along the island. I have these little patches of dirt along the side of the road, just as puddles that have dried up over time and left behind dead plants and bare dirt. I then have these little boulders based off the ones over by the lighthouse, and they're just scattered throughout the landscape just to kind of break it up. We also have these bushes with some flowers on them, just to add a little bit of color to the landscape, and some actual flowers on the ground. And then we have one of my favorite parts, the custom trees. I haven't done many custom trees, and I'm really happy how these turned out. I kind of took some logs and some fences, made a skeletal tree, and then added a bunch of leaves around those branches, just kind of spamming leaves. I did want to have some room between the branches just to make the tree feel more open and more natural. And we have some bare ground around the tree just to show like the tree is kind of blocked out, anything from growing underneath it. And here's the other tree. Then we have another detail I am super proud of, a little red pickup truck. This is the pickup truck of the person living in the lighthouse right now. I kind of just winged this pickup truck and I think it looks super good. We have a little bed in the back, the windshield with a cabin, some headlights. It was tough to build a truck on this small of a scale, but I think I pulled it off pretty well. I made some windows to the lighthouse, just kind of break up the surface of it so it's not just stripes of red and white. And I almost forgot to add a door to the lighthouse, so I did that. This build is done. I absolutely love it. It turned out so much better than I thought it would, and I feel like it's taught me a lot as a builder. We first built the lighthouse, added the top, then we created the interior with this monstrosity inside, and the living quarters, of course. Then we terraformed the rock the lighthouse is sitting on, added a dock and a pathway going back up, and of course, did the environment. Altogether, it fulfills our narrative exactly how I was hoping it would. A run-down old lighthouse on an overgrown island that needs some love, but still being used. And of course, we had the lighthouse at night. I wish the top could be a bit brighter. I wish there were some blocks that could be like super bright, so it feels a bit more like a lighthouse at night. But otherwise, I think it looks really good. Be on the lookout for the cinematic video. It may be posted already, but I plan on posting it a couple days after this video goes up. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps me as a small YouTuber building my channel. And if you want to see more of this type of content with these creative builds, let me know down in the comments. These videos take a lot of work to put together, but I really enjoy them and I want to make sure you enjoy them as much as I do. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.